Welcome back to ESL Lab Miami. I'm Kathy, and today's podcast topic is the passive voice, passing the action. First, let's take a look at English word order. We usually speak in the active voice, and our word order looks like this: subject, verb, object. The game the Steelers won. Well, that's not correct. Let's straighten this out. The Steelers won the game. The Steelers is the subject, won is the verb, and the game is the object. We can also say this sentence in the passive voice by starting with the game, the object, and making it the subject. Let's clean this sentence up. The game is now the subject of the new passive sentence, and the Steelers is now the object. And of course, the verb has changed a bit too. Make a note that simply starting with the verb is not putting your sentence in the passive voice correctly. So let's get rid of that. Now, there's no reason to start saying everything in the passive voice. Although English is really flexible with its passive voice, there are some specific times when we use it. Number 1, focus on the object, the receiver of the action. Which Super Bowl did the Steelers win? Super Bowl 43 was won by the Steelers. Number 2, focus on the result. The plan has been approved. Number 3, the person or subject is not important or not known. The car was stolen. Number 4, focus is on the person or subject who is the receiver of the action. I have been invited to the president's ball. The man was told not to speak. Now, let's take a look at the form. The passive is formed with the verb to be and the past participle of the verb. Do you see how the form of the verb to be shows which tense the sentence is in? Let's take a look at some examples in the present tense in more detail. The store clerk speaks Spanish. Well, we know it's the store clerk who does it, so we don't need to say that. Instead, we can simply take the object, Spanish, and put it in the passive. Let's make Spanish the subject and use the present tense form of the passive voice. Spanish is spoken here. In the second example, the baker bakes fresh bread every morning. Let's take the object, fresh bread, and make it the subject of our new sentence. It will read like this: fresh bread is baked every morning. Now let's take a look at these examples in the past tense. Be in the past tense is either was or were, so make sure your subject and verb agree. When the object of the passive voice sentence is introduced with the preposition by, we call it the agent. Sometimes you don't need to mention the agent. If your listener or reader knows that it was Brad who broke Jen's heart, you can simply say, Jen's heart was broken. Finally, we have some examples of passive sentences with modals. These sentences have 3 verbs: the modal, the verb be, and the past participle. The package will be delivered on Monday. And the tax cuts might be approved by Congress. You notice we have that agent by Congress. Again, if your reader or listener knows who you're talking about, you could simply say, the tax cuts might be approved. Make a note of these important points on the passive voice. The passive voice is not a tense. All verbs are either in the active voice or the passive voice. It shows how important word order is in English. And finally, intransitive verbs cannot be passive because they do not take a direct object. The accident happened at 1 o'clock. This sentence has no direct object. At 1 o'clock is a prepositional phrase. The baby slept all night. This sentence does not have a direct object. All night is an adverbial phrase. He is hungry. Hungry is an adjective. I agree. This sentence has no direct object either. Therefore, you can't use any of them in the passive voice. Don't forget to pass the object to subject position. In this example, I went to Hemingway's house, where has been restored part of the author's life. The writer has beautifully written the passive voice in the present perfect tense. However, she forgot to put the subject in the subject position. It should read like this: I went to Hemingway's house, where part of the author's life has been restored. Remember, even when we use the passive voice, we need to have a subject in the subject position. Now you try it. Here's an exercise about my robotic vacuum cleaner called Roomba. When you do this exercise, keep these 2 points in mind. First, the tense. That will tell you which form of be to use. And second, the past participle of the main verb. Number 1, my floors blank automatically by a robotic vacuum cleaner called Roomba. Let's use the present tense and the past participle of clean. My floors are cleaned automatically by a robotic vacuum cleaner called Roomba. Number 2, Roomba blank around the world. We can either use the present tense or the present perfect tense here, and the past participle of the verb sell, which is sold. Roomba is sold or has been sold around the world. Number 3, Roomba blank by the Artificial Intelligence Lab at MIT. The main verb is develop. Let's put this in the past tense. You got it. Roomba was developed by the Artificial Intelligence Lab at MIT. And number 4, Roomba blank at its charging station. This sentence has an adverb, easily, and the main verb is charge. Let's use the modal can here, and the sentence will read like this. Roomba can easily be charged at its charging station. Well, that's it for today. Don't forget to check out my blog, eslatmiami.blogspot.com. You'll find several practice exercises on the passive voice there. And as always, thanks for listening.